We're back this morning continuing our conversation with former U.S. Senator Sam Nunn and Marty Feldstein. And, Senator, let me go to you. Becky actually said it during the break. She had, I thought, the best question, which was, you suggest you have to get all this done together, meaning collectively, a grand bargain, a grand package. Do you have any confidence in the world that that could possibly happen, given the political environment we're in?
Well, I think it came close to happening last year. So the answer is yes, I think it can happen, because I think there are an awful lot of smart folks over in the Congress. They do not have the support. The ones who are trying to make it happen do not have the support from their leadership in either party, and they don't have support from their party base. So we are polarized. We're not stupid. The people in the Congress know what needs to be done, and there's a growing group of them that are working together. You got the Gang of Six in the Senate. You've got a couple of people now talking about in the Senate doing what I think needs to be done, which is to get rid of this disastrous cliff we've got January 1st, where we fall off of it and have a very, very hard landing. Nobody knows how hard. Substitute something like Simpson Bowles, the miniature Rivelin, or a combination for that, and then give us 6 months to overturn it. Then you'll have a landing that is not a disaster. You can live with it in June of next year if they don't get together.
How worried? That's a great idea. Instead of kicking the can down the road 6 months, you kick it down the road, but here's a real solution that if you don't come up with something better, this really will kick it.
Substitute the can. Change cans.
Yeah.
And then kick whatever's there. But
what's your worry? What's your worry that unto itself creates a whole new cliff of uncertainty?
Well, it may be uncertainty, but it's uncertainty as to whether we're going to have a medium landing or a soft landing, not uncertainty whether we're going to have a catastrophe. I'd rather swap a soft landing for catastrophe any day.
That makes a lot of sense. Marty Feldstein, I mean, if you hear something like that, if we wait 6 months before something like Simpson Bowles and something like one of these other plans that have been out there, before that gets swapped in, what does that do to the economy?
I think that would be a very good thing to do. I agree with the senator. I think that if between the election and January 1, the Congress could agree that if there isn't a new plan put in place 6 months later, something like Simpson Bowles would automatically take effect, that would be a big boost for confidence and for the economy. And, you know, all the talk about whether we need revenue or it can be done on the spending side really misses the point that so much of our spending, so much of what is really government spending happens in the tax code, happens through the so-called tax expenditures. So getting rid of those while it produces revenue really is a cut in spending, whether it's spending to subsidize mortgages or to subsidize solar panels, it's spending. And Congress ought to be able to agree that it's not a debate about revenue versus spending if they can go after those special tax breaks.
Makes a lot of sense, but Senator, you know very well, politically, it's hard to grasp something like the mortgage deduction, which is so popular. How would you go about doing something like that?
Well, I'd combine the Marty Feldstein, Larry Summers approach. First of all, I would go with Marty in trying to get rid of all the tax expenditures that the political system will stand, maybe through credits rather than deductions on some parts of it. And then if, to the extent that we can't do it the Marty Feldstein way politically, then you may have to tick up rates somewhat at the very top, as Larry said. But I'd give it Feldstein approach a full shot first.
What about mortgage deduction? That one's a political hotwire.
Well, that's where you might want to go to a credit, so you basically don't have the deduction for the very high income people. And you might want to do that to some extent in other areas.
What would be your number on the deduction? Meaning highest $500,000 deduction?
Well, I'm not being that precise.
Nobody wants to be precise. We need the precise. That's the problem, right?
But you just said it. The Democrats will not go for the 28% marginal rates in Simpson Bowles. The higher income earners are going to have to be higher than that. They just won't do it. The 28, they would kill them. It's already that 35's killing them. 28, well, they will not go for that.
If you want to talk about the long term, and I think now we've got to try the approach we're talking about, broaden the base, get the rates as low as we possibly can. They may be slightly up or it may be slightly down, but it's not going to change dramatically.
Larry just said he didn't want taxes going up on even people that made $100,000 and above. That's right there, that you're too much into the middle class to raise taxes on those people.
Well, I think
broadening the base. The Democrats talk about broadening the base. They're not going to. How are you going to broaden the base if you don't raise taxes on everyone?
Joe, I'd love to do nothing but raise taxes on the very wealthy. That appeals to me.
That'd be great.
Appeals to me. The problem is there are not enough rich people.
Right, not enough money.
You're right on that. You got to go down on the deductions.
That doesn't stop them from wanting to do it, though, does it?
Well,
punitively.
No, but you got to look at the other side, and I think both parties are wrong here. I don't think the common sense and arithmetic is being applied by either party. Yeah. And you look at the Romney plan. You got he wants to increase defense, right?
What do you think of that? You're an expert on that.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can do it in this environment. I'd like to see us do whatever we're going to do on defense.
The world's gotten a lot more dangerous, it seems like, in the last month, though. Again, right? Whenever we think it's not dangerous, it's like, wow.
It is, dangerous. But we're coming out of 2 wars that are very, very expensive. So we can do some things on the defense side. I think you got to play with a whole deck of cards. In the long run, I think we ought to change our tax system dramatically. I don't think we can do that in the short run. In the long run, I'd love to see us go to encouraging savings and investment, some type of consumption tax at the income tax level.
Does anyone go into politics with a full deck of cards?
Well, increasingly, no.
And Marty, I wanted to just speak to one issue, which is globalization in the whole tax debate. During the commercial break, Joe and I were talking about revenue as a percentage of GDP, and given obviously the economic uncertainty and the economic headwinds that we've had over the past 3-4 years. But how much, when you think about the little revenue that we're bringing, or a lot less revenue that we're bringing in, how much of that is a function of just straight up the economy, and how much of that is globalization?
Oh, it's not globalization. The reason why revenue is down is that the economy is weak, and therefore profits are down and incomes are down. But let me come back to the issue of how do you put limits on tax expenditures. I don't think we should substitute credits. I don't think we should eliminate any of the tax expenditures. But I think we should put an overall cap on the total amount of benefit that each taxpayer can get from using all of these tax expenditures.
That's a great idea, too.
So that way you can politically say to people, you can keep your mortgage deduction, you can keep your deduction for state and local taxes, you can keep your employer exclusion for health benefits, but when you add it all up, the total tax saving that results has to be reasonable, can't be too large as a share of your total gross income.
Very quick question, Marty. How big is the number if you add up all of these deductions and things that are built into the tax code?
Well, the total number that Bowles-Simpson talks about is close to $1 trillion. But if you ask what would be a reasonable thing that protects things like IRAs and 401ks, which are good for growth, but also at the same time puts a cap of, say, 2% of adjusted gross income on the amount that each individual can benefit from this, that would raise nearly $300 billion a year.
Marty, stay where you are. Senator Nunn, stay with us as well.